Welcome to the UAN New Client Training. This is a first of a series of lessons, video recordings intended for customers who are first starting on UAN. It's a 2-day lecture series. And for those who, it's for the customers who are first joining UAN, so you're moving from maybe manual books for your entity, your township, village, or library, or you're moving from some other software system onto the UAN system. Well, this is the lecture series for you to get you started. This can also be used for those of you who maybe are joining maybe an existing township that has a UAN, but you don't have training on the software, or maybe you've been using the UAN software for a little while, but you need a refresher course. Well, this will also be helpful. But keep in mind for those other two scenarios that our discussion is oriented around those who are converting from another accounting system to the UAN software system of accounting for their governmental entity. And we're going to be going over in this series exercises where we use the Township chart of accounts, but the same principles apply whether you're a township, village, library, or special district. It's all the same software, it just uses a different set of account codes. So keep in mind we will be using the Township chart of accounts, as I said. Now, at the time of this recording, it's August 2011, and UAN has two versions of the software: the accounting-only version for those and the accounting and payroll version of the software. Now, if you want to make sure that you're on the correct version or you're watching the correct video for the version of the software that you're using, so as we go through, you'll see that, for instance, you'll see certain icons. If you don't recognize these icons in the computer that you have, like this UAN icon, the UAN tools, well, that probably means that you're using the other version of the software, and you want to call UAN support, 1-800-833-8261, and get some guidance on how to get started on the lecture series for how to learn that version of the software. Don't want you to get 2-3 hours into this and realize, being very confused. You want to make sure you look at your UAN computer and make sure that the initial icons, this is the first one we log in to, it's UAN. The other one has sort of a computer monitor button or folder icon, and that's the other version of the software. So currently, as of August 2011, the version number is 2011.3. Of course, that'll increase as time goes on, and we put out different version updates. Let's make sure you're in the right place. And so, assuming everyone's in the right class, again, this is a 2-day series of lectures. This is to get you started with the UAN software. Now, it's to give you guidelines on the setup and the day-to-day transactions, for the most part, of using the software. However, for those of you who are converting, later on in class, after you complete this session, there'll be a final session on the UAN conversion using this conversion manual. So we have 2 books for this class. The first one will spend the bulk of our time in this exercise handbook, and I've got as you can see, a PDF, an Adobe PDF version open right now. You can see it's about, it's 118 pages long. And then you've got a smaller book that you should also have, which is about 45 pages long here, the conversion manual. Please don't jump ahead to the conversion manual and try to work with that. This obviously doesn't have as much detail, and it assumes that you have all the knowledge that we'll spend the bulk of the time in class with. Learning the everyday, day-to-day knowledge of how to record a receipt or a payment, etc., is going to help you in understanding excuse me, just a minute. is going to help you in your actual conversion process. So really the meat and potatoes of all of it is going to be handled in this when we go through this book. This is really just a guide for different. We have about 4 different conversion methods, and it assumes the knowledge that you've learned in the rest of the class. Now, if you don't have copies of this, we'll talk about going to our website later. They're both available for download or viewing on the website. You can get to them if your UN computer does not have internet access. Any other computer, you can get these documents and view them and print them out, or download them a PDF version to a disk and print them off somewhere else. So get a copy before you continue with this. So you may want to stop if you don't have a copy, and then you're ready for the rest of the class. Well, today we're going to go over Chapter 1 in the new Client Exercise Handbook. That's an overview. We'll talk about fund accounting, how to log into the software, screencasts, and tutorials, and then self-training resources, and then just a guideline for using this handbook before and after class. So the first chapter, we actually just kind of focus in on the book for the most part and look at the software a little bit. But I want to start off right here, and we'll actually read this first paragraph because it's very important you understand where we're coming from when we go through this software exercise demonstrations. So, Chapter 1, Fund Accounting and the UN Software. I'll just read this and I'll kind of elaborate a little bit. A good understanding of fund accounting principles and practices are a prerequisite for effective use of the UN software. Fund accounting training is beyond the scope of this course. All UN training courses are designed to train on the use of the software, not to educate on accounting principles and practices. Knowledge of this is assumed. If you need training in this area, please review the Auditor State's website, www.auditorstate.oh.us, for publications and training conference information. Please see additional suggestions in the self-training section of this chapter. So in other words, we have a lot of the exercises in this chapter. It is accounting software, and so our exercises are going to cover using account codes, making payments, entering receipts, setting up your budgets, and we'll have examples of different budgets and account codes and so forth. Don't take the specifics of those examples too literally. We try to provide in some cases realistic examples. In other cases, they're just examples to show you how to use the software. But at UAN, we're the software folks. And so think of us in that way. We're the software division for the Auditor of State for township, villages, libraries, and special districts. And we are not the authorities or experts on the account codes. For instance, we'll do an example of how to post a payment in the UAN software. And we'll use an account code. We'll try to pick a realistic account code when we do that in an exercise, but it might not apply in your case. There might be even some, in your particular case, some restrictions that we're unaware of, and you can't really say, well, you don't want to look at that and say, well, UAN used that account code in that example, so I should use that account code. That would be the wrong conclusion to derive from these exercises. We're just showing you how you would add any particular account code. And in general, any statements about codes or the accounting practices and especially any legal principles, we're not claiming to speak authoritatively on those issues, so you should not make that assumption. And so I cannot emphasize that enough. You should, if you have any questions, you should consult the material you have on this website, which, for instance, the Township Fiscal Officer's Handbook, the Village Fiscal Officer's Handbook, etc., Ohio Supplemental material on the Ohio Revised Code, and so forth for specific laws and regulations that might guide your accounting decisions. But having said that, we do provide, we're teaching in the context of this is your day-to-day accounting transactions, so you're going to see some examples. But having said that, what I really meant to say was we'll talk about those other resources where you can get it training. We do assume fund accounting, that you have some fund accounting principles and training in this area. If you don't, for whatever reason, then you really want to see if you could attend one of the conferences, the local government officials conference, and if that's not an option, then there's post-conference information available on the Auditor Estates website. There's also a lot of publications, and I'll point you in that direction a little bit later in this lesson. But first, let's log into the software so you can kind of see what that looks like. Now, I am assuming that, I'll get rid of this for now, we won't see that till the end of the class. You all have UAN computers, is what I'm assuming as well. And so you should have this UAN icon on your desktop, right here. And this is how you log in. You double-click on that icon. For those of you who are converting, you should have, when you got your UAN computer, you should have had a document with that gave you your temporary username and your temporary, well, it's not a temporary username, the username that they gave you, and you can set up another one later on if you want to, and then a temporary password. When you log in, you'll enter that temporary password, and then it'll be different than this screen. It'll force you to change your password to one that you make up yourself. And there's certain criteria for that password, which I believe is not discussed in this chapter. It's near the end of the book. We'll talk about the criteria for password changes. But you'll have a username. In our example, and this is what the login screen looks like. So our user is, on page 2, is Brutus, as in Brutus Buckeye. So obviously, silly example for fiscal officer here. And then we'll have our password, which is fiscal officer. Now, an important note about entering your password. Now I'm going to type in an extra digit here to make sure that this is force this to be the wrong password. If I click OK, and I've got the wrong password entered, it gives you an error message that says the username or password you entered is invalid. If the username is valid, it will be deactivated after 3 consecutive failed logins. So in other words, my username's correct, but my password's wrong. I look back at my book. That's what this important note is all about. A valid username with an incorrect password entered 3 times in succession, that username will be deactivated. What does it mean the username will be deactivated? Well, it's going to prevent you from logging into the UAN software. Only UAN support can reactivate an inactive user. And then here's an exception to that, but that's the general principle, is that only UAN support can reactivate an inactive user upon receiving a signed written request from the fiscal officer. This is for security purposes. So if you as a user, now this is about maybe you have multiple users set up, but let's say everyone forgets their password. So if you got 2 users set up and you don't have a valid password for either of them, you get locked out of the computer. Then the only way to get back into the computer is to send us a letter. You can fax that letter, but it's got to have your signature on it and all of your entity relevant information for your entity. There's also a way to do that by email, but we have to have a current email address before you call about it. We just can't accept a phone call saying, "Hey, reset our password so I can get into this so-and-so Township so I can get into their financial information and start recording transactions. Not a good idea for us to just do that, so we need something in writing. So you want to be really careful about this because, you know, some of you have a couple jobs. You might be doing this on the weekend. You can only reach us during our support hours. We're available quite often, but maybe not at the hours that you're working. So you want to be very careful with that password, that you have don't have the caps locks on your computer, you know, use the proper capitalization, etc. when you're keying it in. Okay, so I've keyed in the password and then I click OK. Oops, I forgot to change it to the correct password. All right, and that should allow me to log into the main menu of the UN software. So that brings us to page 2 in our book. And that's Screencast, the Welcome to UAN Screencast tutorial. Well, as it says right there, that's located, when you first log in, it's located right here under Welcome, under the FAQ, or Frequently Asked Questions section. This little shortcut is only available, it's only available when you first log in. After that, after you select some other options, it disappears and you can't get back to it until you quit the software and log back in. So be aware of that. And what I'd like you to do, one of the disadvantages of this audio, this is a good this audio-visual recording you're watching right now. One downside is that in the classroom, when I normally teach this class, I have excuse me, I play this video, this Welcome to UAN Screencast video, and this is about a 14-minute video that gives you an overview, a very good overview, illustrated overview of the general software functions. Because of the way the technology works, I cannot play a video within the video, okay? Or at least this type of video within the video that you're watching right now. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to stop this recording and log into your software. And again, this will disappear if you click anywhere else. Go down to Frequently Asked Questions and run this Screencast tutorial. It'll open up a Windows Media Player file, and it'll allow and watch that tutorial. It'll give you a good, like, it takes about 14 minutes. It'll give you an overview of what all the software functions are, the menus, the main menu, etc. Once you do that, come back and start up this, log back in or put in the CD or DVD if you have a copy of this, and run this and pick up where you left off here. In Windows Media Player, there's a status bar. I can't show you on it with my screen, but there's a status bar at the bottom, and you can skip back to where we're at right now, rather than going through my whole introduction again. So let's go ahead and stop this and then watch that video. All right, I'm assuming that everyone's watched that video at this point, so you're aware that this is the main menu, that that you can navigate through the main menu from accounting in general by using these screens, and select different areas of software like receipts. It'll open up an area of receipts, etc. So now we're going to move on to the next section, which is self-training resources. And why do I throw this up front? I mean, we got a 2-day class and I'm talking about self-training already. Well, this is because I do recommend going through this class, but I find that it's a bit overwhelming for those who are brand new to the software, and maybe, depending on where you're coming from, maybe you've never really used extensively a software program, an accounting software program before. So this can be quite overwhelming. So I want to assure you that you have, after these 2 days are over, that you have other resources for for your training purposes. And here you can see we have several. I'll just point all of them. We have the software manuals. I'll show you how to access the software manual. Screencast, besides the welcome screencast, there's several other screencasts. Training software, which is, and then so we have built-in kind of your own training mode software. Our UAN Link website has a lot of resources, online recordings in addition to the one you're watching now, and then the Auditor State's website. So let's start back at the on page 2 here, the software manuals. Well, this is all the same manual that you can access in 4 different ways. And I'll start with the one that's the easiest and probably most convenient, and that's the Need Help button. That was mentioned in the welcome screencast tutorial. And this allows you to get screen-specific help from in the accounting and general manual in whatever screen you happen to be in. It's screen sensitive. Now, when I'm talking about the accounting and general manual, this is really your main source, reference source after class. This booklet right here is very good, this new client handbook. You can refer to it, but it has some information that's not relevant later, later on in class, like the exercises you're not really going to be useful to you outside of this class. And it's not going to be updated as often as this accounting and general manual. So you want to really get real familiar with this. This will be updated. Every version update we have, if there's anything new in the software that we need to elaborate on, we'll update this accounting and general manual. So this, we really want to emphasize, this should be your go-to place after this class is over for how to find out how to. It includes how-to step-by-step instructions for every section of the software, a frequently asked questions section, an overview, extensive overview beyond one in this booklet for class. So how do you access this? Well, we're using the Need Help button. That's the first option. And so let's say I'm in receipts. So I'm under accounting transactions, and I'm recording some revenue that I received. Well, I'm not sure how do I add a receipt. I know that I can click on the Add button, and I can bring up a certain type of receipt. I mean, you don't know that yet, but let's say you know that much so far. You need to add a receipt. But how do I go about do that? How do I interpret those fields? Well, if you look up here, now that you're in the receipts area, if you click on the Need Help button, it opens up the Accounting and General Manual's receipt that goes to the beginning of the chapter. Here you've got the entire manual broken down by sections in this Adobe PDF file format. And you can certainly print this out. I believe it's, 363 pages, so it's pretty long, or you can just view it here. Not that, I mean, for the entire manual, it's 363 receipts is not certainly that long. But here you've got an overview of receipts. It's very extensive. You've got a description, a detailed description of every field. If I were to go back to click on this Add button and select one of the types of receipts, it's going to describe what does the source mean, the purpose, etc. Well, in class we're going to get into all of this. But just as a later reference, if you want to look at the specifics about each of these fields, you can look them up. Now, of course, that's a little bit too much detail for most people, but it's there if it's needed. And then this is the nice section, how to add a receipt. It gives you step-by-step how do you add the different types of receipts. So you got different lines like step A there. How to print a receipt, how to post it to the system. Suggested reports and statements. After you post this receipt, where do I go for reports? How do I get a good report on this? Well, here's a few suggested reports related to receipts. And then if we have any frequently asked questions, we'll include them here. Again, as time goes on, we'll get more questions from UN customers, and we'll include include them in this list of frequently asked questions. So going back to our software, that's your other option. Oh, actually, I'm going to close that right now. So that's your first option for accessing the manual, and that's very useful. By the way, notice if I click on payments, that opens up another area of the software. You got receipts and payments, and if I click on need help there, it's going to open up directly to the payments section. So whatever area I'm in, it should, in most cases, it's going to open up. There's a few exceptions to that. If I go back to our page number 2, next is the frequently asked questions menu. Well, that's at the bottom corner of every area here. We can see FAQs, and notice that that shows, well, if there's a screencast tutorial available, then you could click on that and watch a tutorial, a video tutorial on how to record payments, how to post payments, and you can skip through to different sections depending on what your needs are. If you want to know how to delete a payment that's in batch, you can click on a section in that screencast. But it also includes shortcuts to the different sections of the Accounting and General Manual for payments. So for instance, if I want to go directly to how to add a payment, I would click on how to add a payment under FAQs. And it opens up that section of the manual just for how to add a payment. Step-by-step instructions. Or maybe frequently asked questions on payments is listed there. I click on that, and it brings me to the frequently asked questions about payments. Notice that changes when I go to receipts or to any other screen. If I go to purchase orders, it's going to have those different sections, how to add a purchase order. So it's very good, screen specific. So that's a great resource. So if you turn to page 3, you can also access this on the entire manual and browse through it on your computer. You can save a copy to a disk or a thumb drive and put it on a different computer than the UA computer. It's an Adobe PDF file, and here are directions to accessing that. I'll show you how to get to that from your desktop. You can get to it using this UAN Tools icon. There's a lot in UAN Tools we are not going to get into right away. But double click on UAN Tools, and you'll have this, it's called version documentation. Well, whenever we update a version to a different version and maybe revise the software a little bit, we'll put in some documentation here. But then we also include the manual as well. So I'm going to double click that folder, and it opens up these folders. As you can see, I've got all my version updates, different things I have included there, documentation. It also includes manual, and there is the Accounting and General Manual, the PDF version. So I could copy this, email it, I could as an attachment, or I could open it up and print out different sections by double clicking on that. Computer I have is not one of your computers, pretty slow computer, so we'll have to give that a second. There we go. We got the Accounting and General Manual. That starts you off at the beginning. And one nice thing about the Accounting Manual is that if you browse through the table of contents, it's hyperlinked, which means that I can go to, for instance, I can go to the investment transfer utility. Say, well, I want to look up information on that utility. Notice how the arrow on my mouse changes from an arrow to a little hand, and I can click on that line, or maybe how to avoid an investment warrant. Okay, that's an odd one. If I click on that, it'll bring me right to page 119. So I can navigate that way, or I can use this option, the bookmarks in Adobe PDF, and I can jump around to different sections like maybe appropriation budgets and view the overview for that. Click on the little plus sign here. Go to steps to access. That's how I get to appropriation budgets. All the information related to in this 363-page document can be accessed pretty easily. So I would encourage you to experiment with that at first to get a feel for how to use the options in this this Adobe PDF document. Let's see. Oh, a little trick here to get to the top of the page. If on your keyboard, if you press the Control key and press the Home key, it brings you to the first page of the manual. So if you're navigated all over the place here, you're looking at different things, and you just want to get back to the table of contents, well, hold down the Control key on your keyboard and press the Home key on the keyboard, and well, when you're in, and that will bring you back to the top of the page. And there you can go and say, okay, now I want to go to payments. And that brings you to the payment section. So that's a great resource. And then finally, on page 3, the last way you can access the exact same manual is on our website. And let's see, we'll get to the UN link website here a little bit later. But here's the web page and how you access it. And you'll want to go to our website and click on UN Software, then Accounting, and there you can access the Accounting and General Manual for currently version 2011.3. All right, next, I've already mentioned Screencast. We don't have Screencast for every single area of the software, but we have Screencast available for all of the day-to-day transactions, such as purchase orders, payments, receipts, and most of the utilities associated with those daily transactions. We're trying to expand that, but it is available for most of those. The advantage of those videos, recordings over this series of lessons, is that you can navigate through those menu options a bit easier. They're formatted, the technology is a bit different, so that we also include some screen visual aids to the lecture, which we can't include on this type of recording. And also, it's easier. There's menu options, so we can quickly go to how do I post a payment versus in our software. In these recordings, you can skip to that section. But this is just a little cleaner. Another advantage is that you don't have to log into the website or insert a DVD or anything like that. It's built into the software. So if you notice under purchase orders, the first thing, these are all located under the frequently asked questions section. It'll always be at the top above your other links to the manual. And this is, again, I can't show you because of the way the technology is, but here's the purchase order screencast. So I would encourage you, starting off, to look through, at least browse through these screencasts. You don't have to watch all of it, but jump around and you'll see that these are very helpful. Notice under payments, we have the payment screencast tutorial, receipts. It's always right there at the top. So that's an excellent resource, especially when you're right in the middle of something and you don't have to log into our website or do anything like that to play them. All right, the training software, another great option when you're first starting off. For those of you who are converting to the UN system, your entity for the first time, you want to wait until you get some of your data entered in the software before you go into the training mode. Now, just at least get your checking account set up, get some of your account codes set up. But once you get a little bit of information, you can go into training application. And here are all the steps to go in the training application. I'm going to jump through these kind of quickly just to show you what it looks like and the difference. For the training mode, it's basically a safe place for you to play around and experiment with the software. As it says, well, I'll read it. The training mode allows you to practice UAN in a software environment using a copy of your most recent entity data without affecting any of the data in the UN application. So it's a safe environment for you to experiment, and you won't affect your real UN data application. It'll use the most current information that you have when you log in, so as you update the UN application and then go back into training mode, it will update that environment. However, it doesn't work the other way around. When you enter a receipt in training mode and then you go log back into the main regular UN application, that receipt's not going to be there. So be aware of that's the one qualifier I have. Is don't. Sometimes people call support. Just rare occasion, people call the support line and say, "I know I entered that receipt." It turns out they entered the receipt in the training mode, and they, a lot was going on that day, and they didn't realize that they did go and entered it in the live UN application. Well, it's not going to carry over. So it's a great learning tool, but you don't want to confuse that issue. So how do you access this, and what does it look like? Well, I'll show you real quick. So I'm in the normal UN application right now. If I click on, it's important, if I try to open the training mode, which is located here under UN Tools, UN Training, yours will probably come up like that. It's going to give me an error message. The UN software is currently running on this computer. Close the UN software before using this function. So that's what you'll have to do. You have to quit the UN software, so I'll go ahead and quit. And now, I'll double click on UN Training. It gives me this message: synchronize the training software with the current UN data. So I'm going to want, especially for those of you converting, that's what you want to do. You want to select yes. So it takes it a second. It's going to copy all that information I had from the other software. Now, the data I just loaded on this, it has like about a month's worth of information. So it is copying some information on here. Type in my username and password. And now you can see it's very obvious training mode. It says documents printed in the training mode are not suitable for office use. It's going to print UN, Training Township, Training County if you try to print a payroll warrant from here. So here you can experiment. This is your playground to experiment all you want, and you will not do any damage to the UN software. So that's probably, I think, one of the most useful tools starting off, just to make experiments, or a year later after using the software and you need to do something unusual under utilities, maybe making some kind of an adjustment. Well, this is a great place to load your current data and do that unusual, once every 2-year type thing in here. See what effect it has on your reports. If everything makes sense to you, then go back, go back to your regular software and duplicate it there in the real UN environment. So that's training mode. So now I'm going to log back into regular UN software. All right, and then back onto page 4. Bottom page 4, UN link website. Software manuals, training course booklets, communications, and much more are viewed on the UN link website. Here's a nice little trick. If you're on the, you can get to this from any computer with internet access, but if you're on logged into the UN software, you can click on this the seal of the Auditor State shortcut, and it'll open up the website directly. So if I go back to my UN software and click on the seal, notice it changes from an arrow to a little hand. I'm going to click on that, and it opens up our website directly. It's very nice. So this opens up the home page of our website. This has a lot of information. I really encourage you to browse through this website. For those of you starting off new on UAN, get real familiar with the menu options. The menu goes across the screen here. So here are your different resources. What's new? Well, that's, as the name implies, we're going to put anything that's new out there. Now, I encourage you, if you have not already provided UAN with an email address, call UN support or send us an email with your email address, because we do communicate a lot of things nowadays but via email is our primary point of communication with our customers nowadays. So give us the email address. We also post all those communications right here on the home page of our website under UN Communications. So here we can see we call it UN User Notes, and we can see the last email that we sent out. Back here is May 2011, and that shows any updates we have to policies or maybe training resources that are available. So get familiar with this website. Here we have UN software, where I mentioned the accounting manual is available, accounting and general manual. Any current updates will be here. All of our other optional software is listed here. Be aware that, again, some of this is not for you if you're dealing with, for instance, with payroll. The payroll manual doesn't apply to you. That's another version. But anything that's labeled with this series, this 2011.1 series, and as it goes on, we're currently at 2011.3. Then the training section. This is where you can find the training booklet that we're using right now, or you will be able to find it here under 2011.3, etc. So browse through this. Other online recordings. We have this for the your tax budget. We have a separate piece of software for your tax budget that you can use. It's optional. But here are some online recordings on how to use that. We've also got a lot of information on other entities that use UAN. You can browse by township, library, village, or special districts. So if you want to give maybe someone close by uses UAN, another township close by uses UAN, maybe you can give them a call if you have like a specific question. You know that they're very similar to your entity. Let's see. Also, under visiting clerks, fiscal officers. Once you go through this 2-day class, and once you've browsed the software, looked at the website, looked at Auditor State's website, and you find that you might need some more one-on-one assistance, well, you have the option to contract with what we call visiting clerks. These are usually fiscal officers that have had years of training on years of experience on UAN. And sometimes they contract with UAN with us occasionally. They also get updated training through us, and we have a listing of them, which of approved UAN visiting clerks, and they can come for online visits with you. Now they're separate contractors from UAN, but again, they're experts on UAN, and they can come out and for a fee they can help give you some one-on-one tutoring on the UAN system, or maybe come to your site, help you answer specific situations. And so you can find a listing here under visiting clerks, and here we've got a coverage map or a listing. So here's just a phone list, email list. These are current as of 2011. But you also have a coverage map, which is kind of nice, because this shows you the different where they're located by county. And so if you're out of Vinton County, for instance, well, the closest one might be here, Meigs, or if you're Perry, you've got a number of options close by. So that may be something that you might consider after class is complete. Okay, so that's the UN Link website. We've already looked at the online training recordings. You have other, we'll be expanding this as time goes by, but you've got other video recordings available online. And then the Auditor of State's website, especially for those of you who are brand new and have no fund accounting or governmental accounting training. That's prerequisites for this course. So you may want to step back and, one, if you can, attend the local government officials conference. If not, then the post-conference information is available on the Auditor of State's website. Also, there's the, and here's, I recommend, I included these examples for a reason. These are excellent, again, it's post-conference information. The latest is 2011. And these are basically, for the most part, PowerPoint presentation. So they're not going to be include, perfect notes on those presentations, but they are very helpful at getting started. Here you've got fund accounting, basic accounting. That was like a total of 3 sessions on basic accounting. The chart of accounts. Excuse me, had a little cold there. I tried to mute the mic so I could sneeze. But I'll try to do that throughout, by the way. My son gave me a little cold here, so sorry about that. So, blame it on my son, don't I? But anyways, the chart of accounts for new townships, villages, Ohio budgetary law is an excellent one on getting started with setting up your budget for the year. And a lot of other information. The Ohio Township Handbook. Well, this can be a bit overwhelming, or Village Officer's Handbook. It's a huge, both of those are huge documents. But I think if you look at the back of the book, I think that's where you'll find it's a better place to start. For instance, with Appendix 2 currently, so 2011, the Township Accounting Manual is part of Appendix 2 in Township Handbook, and that is, I think, a better starting point than the beginning of that huge document. Same idea with the Village Officer's Handbook. That'll give you a good overview of the day-to-day procedures of whether a township or village, and the different reports and fund accounting procedures and concepts. So I highly recommend reviewing that information. And again, don't be overwhelmed by it. If you look the back of the book first, you'll get a better idea. That's available on this website. You can get all of these on PDF format, so you can put them on different computers. Ohio Compliance Supplemental Manual, Best Practices and Technical Bulletins. Well, this is all on the Auditor of State's website. There's the website. And again, we've got a nice little trick in the software here. And it's right here, just like with the seal of the Auditor of State. Well, if you highlight over Mr. David Yost here, you can launch the Auditor of State website by clicking on him. And that opens up the Auditor of State website. So goes directly there. And that's what I was talking about. Here under Services, Training Conferences, you can find the post-conference information. Might stop me because I've got, I got security kind of tight on this computer, but there it goes. Brought me to all of my different, by lecture, here are the speaker handouts for the 2011 conference. And on your book, I've mentioned the ones that I think are particularly helpful for new fiscal officers. And then using the top menu, again, you've got publications, and there's the other references I mentioned, the technical bulletins, best practices, Ohio Compliance Supplemental Manual. That's huge. A lot of these are huge, but they're PDF documents. If you learn how to search in the PDF documents, you can do specific keyword searches and find what you're looking for, such as if you need to find information on blanket certificates, you go here, record a search in that document, and find everything that reference to blanket certificates, for instance. There's the Village Officer's Handbook and the Township handbooks right there. A lot of other information as well. By the way, from the main menu, you can also get to our UAN software website by clicking on Services, Accounting Software, and then the UAN support website will bring you back here. Okay, so that's not the end of Chapter 1. I'm getting ahead of myself. Using this handbook. Well, like I said, you don't really want to use this handbook too much after class. We'll kind of describe the typical sections and most of the chapters in this handbook. There are a few things that you can use that might be helpful after class as a reference. But for the most part, you want to use the Accounting and General Manual as your primary reference. And like I said, there are some unique features in the handbook. All right, so in each section, we've got an overview, which is just going to give you a very brief overview summary of what's also in the General Manual, Accounting and General Manual. We'll show you a menu path to how to get to where you're going to. So how do I get to receipts? Well, you follow the steps to access to receipts. Highlights. This is going to underscore important points of discussion during the instructor's guided exercises. So I may not actually read through all of those, but I should touch on most of the points during our exercises. Then, of course, the guided in-class exercises. Key software concepts. Well, there are only a few sections that have this, and this is really, I may or may not go over all the information in these sections, but this is an excellent reference because it consolidates a lot of material in the Accounting and Training Manual. Again, that's about 360 pages. It consolidates some of those key concepts into into these different sections. For instance, the purchase order section, cash transactions, and bank reconciliation. So that might be worthwhile putting a little page mark in each of those, and I'll point those out. And then also these last two sections, the effect on the Big Six reports. Well, we've identified at least 6 key reports in UAN that every fiscal officer should be confident in interpreting. And we don't give you the menu path throughout the book, but at the back of each section, where relevant, we include what impact that, say we enter a receipt, what impact is that going to have on these 6 reports, if any? And so here's the menu path, and you can, so you want to refer back to that. You might want to put a page mark on this page on how to get to these reports. We may or may not refer to this in class. It's intended as, for the most part, an after-class reference. But again, if you know these reports inside and out, you know how to interpret these reports, you're going to be able to, there's about 100, I don't know exactly, there's probably 100 reports in UAN. If you know these 6, like it says in the book, you'll be well on your way to interpreting, understanding all the other reports. All right, checklists. Well, this is, in most cases, a very summarized list of our frequently asked questions in the Accounting and General Manual. We've included a few things at the back of the book for new users that might be helpful when you're first starting out. Sort of a checklist. So that's a good reference as well, an after-class reference. All right. You can turn to page 8, and after this video, kind of read over our Buckeye Township story. That's just to give you, that's a little tongue-in-cheek, silly story that one of our folks made up to tie in a lot of our transactions that we're going to do in our exercises in this class together. So I encourage you to read that over. For those of you, if you're not a Buckeye fan, you might not like that, but others might get a little chuckle out of that. So we'll discuss all of that or transactions related to that story as we go on. So again, the fiscal officer is Brutus Buckeye, and we're with Buckeye Township here in the mythical township. One thing I should point out is that we're camping out on, now here you can see my date is August 30th, but our actual date of transactions we'll be backdating everything to January. Well, I take that back. When we run certain reports, we're really camped out in January and February for the purpose of some of our demonstrations. But in our little Buckeye Township, Franklin County pretend world, we're actually in, for most of our exercise sizes, either January or February, and we're going to pretend that, even though our software is going to be detecting the real date in our on our computer. Okay, so that is it for Chapter 1. So kind of a big overview, but we'll move on to Chapter 2, which is setting up your checking account, and there we're going to pretend that we start off brand new. So that is the next video. Thank you.